Hey guys, welcome back to my Twilight Princess HD review. So in part 2 of this, I am going to be offering a Catholic perspective on the game's storyline, which, quite honestly, I didn't really think about it that way until just today after I beat it. And I really soaked in the storyline, because admittedly when I first played Twilight Princess, I wasn't incredibly mind-blown by the story. And I find that really hard to believe, because there's a lot of good stuff here. So, obviously, there's going to be a lot of spoilers for the story. So, if you're like me, where you want to know what's going on, and not like my brother, where he just wants to get to the action, like I said, brace yourselves. So, anyway, I think most of you already know what Midna's stance is in this game. But the thing is, you also have to consider Xant's stance. And the thing about Xant is that he actually has a couple of good points for why he's doing what he's doing. You see, at about shortly before the midway point of the game, it's revealed that there were thieves that tried to invade the Sacred Realm, and that's why the goddesses created the Twilight Realm to imprison the thieves. And in the process, those thieves, they had kids, and then they had kids, and then that became the Twilight people. And Xant, being one of the ancestors of those original thieves, said that the light people were oppressing their people for so long that he wanted the power to merge light and darkness. And at first glance, if you didn't know that he was the villain of the game, you might have actually thought that was a pretty ambitious goal. Like, hey, why not we be buddy-buddy? Like, yeah, those citizens of Hyrule, let's try to be friends with them. The thing is, he went about it totally the wrong way. For one, he kind of threw a bit of a fit, which at the time downplayed his credibility as a villain. Because when Xant first appears, he is just amazing. He could potentially even have beaten Ganondorf until he took off the helmet. And he became like this crazy psychopath that could like lean upside down and screamed like it. Yeah. Good thing Ganondorf actually does show up in the game to make up for the comedy that Xant puts on. Anyway, off the point. So for one, Xant has a lust for power, and we all know that power in the hands of those that don't need it is very dangerous. And that's what contrasts Xant from Midna. You see, Midna also craves power, as evidenced by one of the first things she asks of Link is, I need you to help me get my hands on the fused shadows. And Midna's thinking from a completely selfish perspective here. As Midna admits after, or I think right before you defeat Xant, Midna says, I didn't care about your world at all, you light people. She said, all I cared about was restoring my kingdom to the way it was. I didn't care if your people suffered along the way. So essentially, Midna was using Link as a means to an end, which is, as we all know, against Catholic teaching. We teach in the Catechism that the end doesn't justify the means. But the cool thing about Midna that no Zelda partner has come close to yet is that Midna actually evolves over the course of the game. When I first met Midna in that jail cell in the Twilight Realm, I thought she was really annoying. And I was wondering, like, I have to carry this person around with me the whole game? But as the game progresses and Midna begins to see the actions of the Light World people, she slowly transforms. So she's very sarcastic and taunting at the start of the game, and often kind of puts Link down a bit unnecessarily at times, but then eventually you see the more caring side to her. Not that she becomes all touchy-feely and whatnot, because she certainly doesn't, but she definitely begins to see the perspective of people like Zelda, where Zelda made the choice to allow Hyrule to be overcome by Twilight for the sake of protecting her people. But on the other hand, Zelda may come across as a coward if you just look at that, but then later in the game there's what Smash Brothers refers to as the Midna's Lament situation, where Midna is forced to return to the world of light, and because she's a citizen of the Twilight, it nearly saps her of her life. So Link, being forced to take the form of a wolf, has to escort Midna to Zelda in Hyrule Castle. And not only does the game have a pretty incredible music track called Midna's Lament, or Midna's Desperate Hour, as it's called in some soundtracks, but when you finally get to Zelda, Zelda is willing to sacrifice herself to save Midna, and in doing so, she and Midna become united in mind and heart, which is something that I didn't even remember that until I beat the game again on the Wii U this afternoon. So essentially, when Midna gave up her life, or when Zelda gave up her life to save Midna, it essentially almost was like kind of like the Horcrux deal in Harry Potter, except in this case, it wasn't through murder. It was in giving life that a person's life was spared. So Zelda was able to help Midna be able to live in the world of light. And in doing so, when Ganondorf tried to kill/possess Zelda at the end of the game, because Midna lived, Zelda was able to live. So it's, I don't know, almost akin to Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. Yes, I know that gets said a lot, like when there's a theme of self-sacrifice. But really, there's not too many games that portray the whole heart and mind as one theme, like this one does. Also, looking at the game's ending, it's definitely a thought-provoking one, and one that I might not necessarily pinpoint as Catholic, but it's definitely one where choice becomes what is good for the sake of the kingdom, not necessarily the feeling of another. So, at the very end of the game, Midna is about to head back to her Twilight Realm, and not like the Twilight versions of the provinces, but the Twilight, back in her own kingdom. And it was said earlier multiple times that only the true ruler of the Twilight could utterly destroy the Mirror of Twilight, hence why Zant could only break it, because he was a false king. But Midna was the true ruler of her people, and she was able to utterly destroy the mirror. Because even though Zelda's viewpoint was, why can't we just get along? Because the way Zant saw it was, he wanted to take Hyrule by force. And the people of Hyrule were scared of the Twilight Beasts, because, they were being oppressed. Zelda thought that maybe they could have a peace treaty between the kingdoms. But Midna knew how much power could be abused. And that was, again, something I didn't see until I beat it today, how when Midna did finally get a hold of the fused shadows, and she used them to, kill Zant, she said, that was only a fraction of the power that I had. And you could tell that Midna was almost terrified that she had that much power, that potentially she was turning into another version of Zant. And Midna was able to turn into this pretty giant beast that was capable of pulling off some incredible moves later in the game. But perhaps Midna realized that such power could easily be abused. I mean, look at Ganondorf. Ganondorf was gifted power by the goddesses, but he used it for evil instead of for good, and that ended up with a sword being stabbed in his gut. Midna did not want to make the same mistake as Ganondorf, so rather than abusing and seeking more power, Midna used what was given to accomplish the peace and save the world, shall we say. And then she decided to get rid of it, so that no one would ever again try to improperly take advantage of the power. So the lesson here that we can understand from a Catholic viewpoint is, yes, we've been given much by God, but we have to make sure that those gifts are used for the glory of God, not for the justification of ourselves. So let's say we've been gifted with our own Triforce of Courage, like Link was. Are we going to use it to be self-sacrificial to help others, or are we just going to use it so that we can, be proud of ourselves and brag about our accomplishments? It definitely, when you look at it like that, it definitely makes a game that I formerly had a really weak storyline into one of the best Zelda games to read about. So I hope, if I missed anything, you'll clarify some other great, touching moments in the storyline, because, oh my gosh, I didn't even touch on the Ilia stuff. But anyway, that's my perspective on Twilight Princess's story, so Please let me know in the comments what you think. And until my next video, keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless.